Leslie, and welcome to another episode of Why Not Today. And today we're going to talk about community. And that is just something near and dear to my heart in so many ways, so many things. And it's one of my top values. But I always start with a Why Not Today moment. And I'd probably say the most profound Why Not Today moment I can remember was actually my father's funeral, which is hard to believe. It's almost 14 years ago next month. But he was so involved in the community and made such a difference and knew so many people that his funeral was over 500 standing room only. And then not only that, but, and this is another whole long story, we had an anniversary party the day after his funeral for my parents' 50th anniversary. And that was a packed house. And people came to that funeral I didn't even know were there. People told me stories of things my dad did for them. He was just so involved in the community. So that has just always been how I was raised, what I believe in, and one of my strongest values. So 5 years ago, I asked the question, why not today? And I've been asking that every day since. And I started the Why Not Today podcast almost 5 years ago. We actually next week will have our fifth anniversary, or as we start our fifth anniversary episode with my sister. And we're really going to talk about community and connection there. But what I've realized is from talking to all my guests is courage rarely grows in isolation. That it takes a community, it takes a village. As I say, it takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a village to build a business to um, survive, and all the things between that. So, and yes, there are times I felt alone, and more times than I can count. And there's seasons in Mary Kay and pushing towards a big goal, leading a team, trying to hold it all together. There's seasons in starting Why Not Today, the podcast, the business, and wondering, with the podcast, was anybody listening? Should I even bother? And then somebody reaches out, say they listened to an episode or it made a difference. And it's like, oh, maybe that's why I'm doing that. And so, yes, I have considered quitting many times. People have asked me that. And whether it's Mary Kay, whether it's the podcast, whether it's a new business, you have that day. And honestly, this morning, as I'm recording this, has been one of those days. I've already recorded this almost fully this already. And then my computer decided to do something weird. It's one of those days that, you definitely like, what am I doing? Sometimes it'd be easier just to show up for a job and get a paycheck. But when I think about the fact that I could get up this morning and take my time reading, go for a beautiful walk in the snow with my dog, and design the life I want, be there for family, that is invaluable. So I'm not quitting anytime soon or ever. But but what I know when I feel like quitting is thinking about the community and the people that support me and that I support. And so what I know I need to do is when I feel like quitting, when I feel like I'm in isolation, feel like I'm lonely, that I got to keep asking. I need to keep showing up and keep giving back. I remember another Why Not Today moment. I wasn't having a really good day, and it was one of those kind of like this morning, like ready to throw in the towel. I'm like, you know what can I do to give back? So it was around Valentine's Day, and I went and bought a whole bunch of Valentine's cards and sent out to people and just sent some love. And so sometimes when you're feeling like it's not going well, like who can you reach out to? Who's in that community? And so community definitely makes a difference. Sometimes independence glorified, the hustle, the self-made woman. Remember that commercial? I don't know how old you are listening to this, but there was a woman, she said, I can fry a bacon and I can go to work and I can do all these things. Wish I could remember the perfume. I think it was a perfume. But nobody really builds something meaningful alone. And every successful person has some kind of accountability. We have mentors. Every movement involves community. And I didn't even realize what I was getting with the community and Mary Kay and the mentorship until I started another business. I was actually talking to somebody the other day who has a business called Organize 365. And she shared that she was a Mary Kay consultant in college. And then from there was involved in several other direct selling companies that she thought were a better fit. But she said she learned so much, and Mary Kay was so pivotal in teaching systems and businesses and how to run a business. Mary Kay has a great book if you're ever interested. Her principles were life-changing. So some of the things that she taught was a weekly success meeting. She did these not to just as a party and some fun, but to really lift women up. And often said, if you're having a really good week, you need to come and encourage somebody else. And if you're having a bad week, you need to come and get encouraged by somebody else. And so within those meetings, there was recognition. We want to be applauded. My dog, who I thought was in the room, it's not applauding when I have a good sale or something happens. It was accountability. It was check-in, somebody paying attention, to celebrate us. And if you're not having a good week, to be there with you and empathize. Mary Kay, you cannot come into Mary Kay and buy your position based on levels or degrees or success. You have to start at the bottom. And, I started at the bottom as a brand new consultant with an MBA, but you have to learn and go through the ranks. And so you learn, and I can coach people because I've been through a lot of those things. As I said, we celebrated wins and you showed up consistently. And what I've noticed for over years, that when people stop showing up, it wasn't the information they missed. It was the camaraderie. It was the feel. It was the encouragement, the hope and permission that they could do it. And so when they weren't showing up, they almost lost belief. And Mary Kay always said, you miss 1 week, you're sick, 2, you're dying, and 3, you're gone, basically. And I could watch that pattern. People start, it's that ghosting that we call now. And, when people don't get back to me, and the ghosting, the longer they take to get back to you, the more embarrassed they are. So they don't. And same thing with showing up. So community doesn't just give you strategy, or doesn't give you strategy. It protects your belief. And belief is everything. Community is not fluff. It provides your accountability. It provides perspective. It gives you energy. Do you ever go to a meeting with the right people, or have coffee with a friend, and you just walk out of there so energized? It provides truth. It provides visibility, and it provides belonging. We are missing belonging. Motivation often fades, but community sustains. So there's weeks that I didn't feel like recording this podcast, or I didn't have a guest, or I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. But I made this promise to myself that I would show up. And last week's episode was about consistency. So I talk more about that, because, when you have people that are listening, when people expect you, when your consistency matters, you keep your word. And I'm keeping my word to myself as much as anything. And community increases that commitment, and also provides power partners. I have a friend of mine, back to my Mary Kay world, that the two of us were power partners. Like, she was in a pink Cadillac, then I was in a pink Cadillac. She was having a good day, I was having a bad day. I was having a good day, she was having a bad day. And we knew to push each other, to encourage each other, to reach out, especially to celebrate the success, but really reach out when you were having a bad day. I remember, there were often that we would meet for lunch or coffee, and it wasn't in my schedule, but sometimes you just need that. And I remember one time her husband told her, like, you need to call Leslie, you guys need to have lunch. Like, you need to get out of this house. So that's so important. Do you have that tribe? Do you have those people that are there for you? And community is not just about goals. It's being there for each other in the good times and the hard times. I watched people all throughout my life rally to support somebody that was struggling. The inner circle, when we started last July, I actually had somebody join, and she was starting a new business, but unfortunately had stage 4 cancer, and she was ready to fight. And there was at one point she wasn't showing up for the calls because she was so sick, but she came back and she's like, I needed the group. I needed the support. She had a new idea to pivot and write a book. And unfortunately, Jody didn't make it, but we were there to support her and be there as a community for her. And so she needed community, and we needed there for her. We were able to surround her with support, prayer, encouragement, and belief during one of the hardest seasons of her life. I just got a text this morning from somebody in the inner circle who isn't going to be on the call, and because her mother's gone into cardiac arrest, and she felt safe enough with me to share that. And we have a powerful group we can be there to pray for and support her. And so that's what community does. It becomes a place where you do not have to pretend everything is fine. There's something powerful at knowing people that are praying for you, thinking about you, holding space for you. And I can remember other times that I had one of my teammates in Mary Kay that I think I met her in person once. And unfortunately, her husband passed away. I was one of the first people she called. And I didn't feel like I really knew her, but I guess she felt safe with me. And you build that in community. And so community helps give you courage when you're seen, and you stay courageous when you're supported. So community without structure sometimes can be noise. Community with structure can contain creates momentum. It's that showing up consistently. It's the group that you're a part of. And I've seen this so clearly in the inner circle. And it's women showing up consistently for each other to move forward consistently. And the ones that drift away and don't show up, they kind of forget why they joined. They forget the energy. If you've been a part of a meeting or a group and you loved it and then life got busy and you didn't show up, and then you're like, do I even really like it? And you go back and you're like, oh my goodness, I am so glad I am part of this. And so we avoid community sometimes because we think we have to figure it out alone. We think we're not perfect. We fear that judgment. And so we need to be invested in the community, be a part of it. There's something, I think I've shared this in the podcast before, that I read that somebody built a church and they didn't put any lights in there. And they gave everybody a candle. And they said the church only is as good as the people that are in it. It's not the building. And so when people show up with their candle, then there's light in the church. So isolating yourself, running away when you're feeling down, it doesn't help us. We need to reach out. We need to build that community. So my dad, as I keep going back to as a perfect example, he started the Reston Chamber of Commerce. At that point, it was called the Board of Commerce. And it was not because he had local business. It was because he was raising 6 children in the community. And he believed in showing up locally, being known, contributing, making a difference. And I didn't fully appreciate all he taught me until I started my own business and getting out in the community and meeting people. And so there's so much strength, guys, in believing or belonging, and not just belonging, but participating. And we're never meant to build something alone. We're never meant to carry life alone either. So let me ask you a couple questions before we close. Where are you trying to do it alone? Who actually knows your goals? Does anybody know what you're doing? Who is holding you accountable weekly? Who do you call when your life falls apart? Do you have that person you can call at 3 in the morning, or the person that will call you? And when you go through grief, you really realize who is there for you. And it does make a difference. That just text, that call, thinking of you makes such a difference. And who is there to celebrate you when life goes right? Who are the people you call when something amazing happens? If getting married, having a baby, somebody you know is having a baby, who are those people you call to celebrate? And if nothing changes in 6 months, what does that look like? What are you guys doing to change your situation? So not only do we have the 5-year anniversary of the podcast, or starting our 5th year, March is significance. My birthday happens to be March 1st, which is going to be after this podcast launches. My dad's birthday was March 5th, and actually the day he passed away. And March 5th is the date I started the podcast. So there's lots about I've learned in the last year. And it's been 5 years of showing up, not perfectly, not always confidently, but consistently. And I don't edit these podcast episodes because the message is, why not today? You just got to do it. And I can say this with certainty. Courage grows faster in community. There's so many people that supported me on this journey. We're never meant to do this alone. And if this episode made you think of someone, share it with them. And if it stirred something in you, send me a message. I'd love to hear where you are building, where you might need support, because courage is contagious. And it multiplies when we show up together. So let me know how I can support you, how this episode helped you, what community you're a part of, or what community you want to be a part of. And let's grow together and make a difference. And as I always close, why not today? All right, I can't wait for next week's episode to celebrate the anniversary of the Why Not Today podcast. Bye, and why not today?